I never thought I'd be the kind of father who didn't know his own son, but standing in my kitchen at 2:00 in the morning, watching security footage on my phone, I realized Thomas had been living a completely different life, and the man standing beside him in that grainy video, the one holding my son's hand like it was the most precious thing in the world, was about to change everything I thought I knew about love. My name is Luca Chen, I'm 53 years old, a widower, and until that night I believed I was a good father. I was wrong. This is the story of how one night, one single moment captured on camera shattered every assumption I'd ever made about my son, about love, and about what it means to see the people we care about most truly. This is a true gay love story, one about courage, heartbreak, and the power of unconditional acceptance. It started 3 months earlier on a suffocatingly hot August evening in Portland, the kind of heat that makes the asphalt shimmer and turns the city into a slow-moving dream. The air smelled like hot pavement and the roses that grew wild along the park blocks. Thomas had just turned 24. He worked at a tech startup downtown, lived in the apartment above our family's restaurant, and spent most evenings helping me close up. Chen's Kitchen had been in our family for 30 years. My father started it with nothing but borrowed money and determination. I inherited it when he passed, and I'd always assumed Thomas would take it over someday. That was the plan, the safe, predictable plan that had guided our family for 3 decades. But life has a way of destroying plans. Thomas was quiet, always had been, even as a child. While other kids ran screaming through playgrounds, Thomas would sit with a book, content in his own world. He'd build elaborate structures with blocks, create entire universes in his imagination. His mother used to say he had an old soul, leering at my wife, my everything, after she died 6 years ago, a sudden heart attack that left us both drowning in grief. That quietness and Thomas had deepened into something I couldn't quite reach, a wall I didn't know how to climb, or maybe I'd built the wall myself, brick by brick, with every conversation I'd avoided. "Dad, I'm heading out," Thomas called from the restaurant floor. I looked up from counting the register. The evening rush had been particularly brutal. Friday nights always were. My back ached from hours on my feet, and I could feel the beginning of a headache forming behind my eyes again. That's the third time this week. Thomas adjusted his messenger bag, not meeting my eyes. His dark hair fell across his forehead, slightly damp from the heat. He pushed it back with that familiar, nervous gesture. "Just meeting some friends." "What friends?" The question came out sharper than I intended, harsher. Marquez flinched, and I saw something flash across his face. Fear, guilt. "Just people from work." "You never mentioned work friends before. What are their names?" "Dad, I really need to go. I'm already late." "Late for what?" "Just tits." "Nothing, I'll be back later." He was lying. I could always tell when Thomas lied. His left hand would fidget with his watch, a nervous habit since childhood. The watch had been his mother's, a vintage silver piece she'd worn every day. After she died, Thomas never took it off. He was fidgeting with it now, fingers tracing the edge of the band. "Be safe," I said, softening my tone. "Text me when you're home." "I will." He left quickly, the bell above the door chiming as he disappeared into the Portland evening. The sound echoed in the empty restaurant. We'd already sent the last waitress home. I watched through the window as he walked down the street, hands in his pockets, shoulders slightly hunched, like he was trying to make himself smaller. Something was wrong, I just didn't know what, and because I didn't know how to ask, because I'd spent 6 years avoiding difficult conversations, burying myself in work instead of grief, I let him go. I let him walk away with his secrets. The man's name was Charlie Wolf. I wouldn't learn that until later. But I need you to understand who he was, who he became to my son, who he became to me. Charlie was 26, a freelance photographer who'd moved to Portland 2 years earlier from Boston. He had dark, curly hair that fell into his eyes, olive skin that spoke of Mediterranean heritage, and a smile that could light up a room. He was passionate about his art, Lille, in a tiny studio in the Pearl District, and worked 3 part-time jobs to make rent while building his portfolio. He was also the reason my son had been sneaking out every night, The reason Thomas had started wearing cologne was the reason he'd been smiling at his phone at odd hours, but I'm getting ahead of myself 2 weeks after that. August evening, I found the first real clue. Thomas had left his laptop open on the kitchen counter. I wasn't snooping, not intentionally. I'd just been wiping down the surfaces, cleaning up after our usual Sunday morning breakfast. Marquez made pancakes every Sunday. It was our tradition, the one thing that remained constant after Lemming died. When the screen flickered too, Lafoshin activated on email notification popped up from owlfphotography@gmail.com, subject tonight's same place my heart stuttered. The preview text read, I can't stop thinking about last weekend. Meet me at the Overlook, I need to see you, I need to touch you, I need the preview cut off there, stared at those words for a long time. My son was seeing someone he'd never mentioned, someone he was hiding, someone who needed to touch him. The thought made my stomach twist, not from disgust, I want to be clear about that, but from hurt. From the realization that Thomas felt he couldn't tell me about this person. Is this a wolf? Was it a woman? Had to be right. But then why the secrecy? Unless no, I pushed the thought away before it could fully form. I should have asked him directly. That's what a good father would have done. Sat him down, looked him in the eye and said, Thomas, I saw an email. Who is a wolf? Why are you hiding this from me? Instead, I did something I'm not proud of, something that makes my chest tight with shame. Even now, I installed a tracking app on the security camera system that covered the alley behind our restaurant. The system was old, mostly for insurance purposes, but it worked. Thomas parked there every night before heading out. I told myself it was for safety. Portland had been having break-ins in the neighborhood. Someone had smashed a car window just last week, but really I just needed to know. I needed to understand what was happening to my son, why he was slipping away from me. The footage from that night, the night that left me completely speechless, started at 11:47. I was already in bed, but I couldn't sleep. I'd been tossing and turning for hours, thinking about that email, thinking about the distance growing between Thomas and me. So I grabbed my phone and opened the security app just to check. I told myself just to make sure he got home safe. The screen showed the empty alley in grainy black and white, our dumpster, the brick wall, the parking spaces. Then at 11:47, Thomas' car pulled in, his beat-up Honda Accord, the one he'd bought himself with money from his first real job. He sat there for a moment, checking his phone. I could see the glow of the screen illuminating his face. He looked nervous. Then another car arrived. Silver Honda Civic, newer than Thomas. The driver's door opened. A man stepped out. My breath caught. Even in the grainy black and white footage, I could see him clearly. Tall, lean, dark curly hair. Charlie Wolf stepped out of that car, and even through a security camera, I could feel the energy shift. Thomas got out of his car immediately, and Charlie crossed the distance between them like he'd been starving for it. They didn't kiss, not right away. First they just stood there, foreheads touching, hands clasped between them. Adrian's thumbs rubbed circles on the backs of Thomas' hands. I could see Thomas's shoulders shaking. He was crying. Adrian said something, I couldn't hear it, of course, but I could see his lips moving, see the tenderness in the app gesture as he lifted one hand to wipe away Thomas' tears. Then Adrian cupped my son's face with both hands and kissed him, soft, gentle, reverent, like Thomas was something holy, like he was the most precious thing in the world. Thomas melted into it, his hands fisting in Adrian's jacket, pulling him closer. They kissed for what felt like hours but was probably only seconds. When they finally pulled apart, Charlie kept his forehead pressed to Thomas. They were both smiling. Then Thomas said something that made Adrian laugh freely, his whole body shaking with it, and then they kissed again. I sat in my kitchen, phone shaking in my hand, and realized I'd been holding my breath. My son was in love. My son was in love with a man. And he'd been too, afraid to tell me. I didn't sleep that night. I replayed the footage over and over, watching the way Thomas melted into Adrian's embrace. The way they held each other was like they were the only two people in the world. The way Thomas smiled, really smiled for the first time in months, maybe years. I thought about every conversation we'd Had over the past 6 years, every time Thomas had gone quiet when I asked about dating, every time he'd changed the subject when relatives asked if he had a girlfriend, every time I'd made an offhand comment about wanting grandchildren someday, about carrying on the family name, every time I'd talked about finding him a nice Chinese girl, someone who understood our culture, I'd been so blind, no worse than blind. I'd been the reason he was hiding, the reason he felt he couldn't be honest. Every careless comment I'd made had built another brick in that wall between us. I thought about Leeing, what she would have said, how she would have reacted. She'd always been the emotional one. The one who could read Marca like a book, the one who knew how to ask the right questions. I'd relied on her for that, and when she died, I'd lost not just my wife but my translator, my bridge to understanding my own son. The next morning, M. Sakis came downstairs. Looking exhausted, there were dark circles under his eyes and his hair was sticking up at odd angles. He was wearing an old college t-shirt and sweatpants. Late night, I asked, pouring him coffee. He tensed immediately, just couldn't sleep, bad dreams, something like that. I slid the mug across the counter. Our kitchen was small, just a galley space with barely enough room for 2 people. But it had been hours for so long that every scratch on the counter, every stain on the wall told a story. Thomas. Yeah, I need to tell you something. His eyes widened, that familiar panic. The watch fidgeting started immediately. What's wrong? Is it the restaurant? Are you sick? No, nothing like that. I just took a breath. I know I haven't been the most open father. After your mom died, I shut down. I focused on the restaurant, on surviving, on making sure the bills got paid and the business stayed afloat. Thomas set down his coffee. Dad, what's this about? I'm saying that I forgot to check in. I forgot to ask you how you were surviving. I made assumptions about your life instead of actually being part of it. For a moment, I thought he might break down. His eyes glistened with unshed tears, his jaw clenched. I'm saying, I continued, that whoever you are, whatever you need to tell me, I'm listening now, really listening, and nothing will change how much I love you. The words hung in the air between us. Mark, his breath hitched, but then he shook his head. I have to get to work, or 'cause I'm already late. I'm sorry. He left before I could stop him, grabbing his bag, and practically ran out the door. I stood in the kitchen, alone, wondering if I just made everything worse. I spent the next week trying to find the right words. How do you tell your son that you know his secret, that you've been watching him without permission? How do you apologize for 24 years of assumptions? How do you make up for every moment you failed to create a safe space for truth? I couldn't figure it out, so instead I did something different. I started researching late at night after the restaurant closed. I'd sit in my small office with my reading glasses sliding down my nose, scrolling through websites, LGBTQ resources, and coming out stories. How to be supportive parent. I read articles from PFL Ajip rants, families and friends of lesbians and gays. I read personal essays from parents who'd gone through this, who'd had to unlearn prejudices they didn't even know they had. I learned about the fear, the isolation, the statistics that made my chest ache. 40% of homeless youth identify as LGBTQ, with higher rates of depression, anxiety, and suicide, all because they didn't feel safe being themselves. I learned that love, real, genuine love, was something to celebrate, not hide, and I learned that I'd been failing my son in ways I couldn't even comprehend. Every assumption I'd made about his future, every comment about grandchildren and carrying on the family name, every silence when relatives made casually homophobic jokes, every moment I'd let pass without saying you can be whoever you are with me, failed him. But I could change that. I could do better. Charlie Wolf had a gallery showing downtown. I found out through a poster I'd seen taped to a coffee shop window. His name jumped out at me, the same name from that email, the same name I'd been Googling obsessively. Wolf Photography, Invisible City's opening reception. Friday, 7:00 p.m. The Pearl Gallery. I went alone. I didn't tell Thomas, I didn't tell anyone. I just put on my good shirt, the navy one Lemming had bought me for our anniversary 3 years before she died, and drove downtown. The gallery was small, tucked between a bookstore and a vintage clothing shop on a quiet street in the Pearl District. Through the window, I could see people milling about with wine glasses, examining photographs on white walls. My hands were shaking as I pushed open the door. Inside, the space was intimate. Maybe 30 people total, speaking in hushed tones. Soft jazz played from hidden speakers, and the walls were covered with stunning black and white photographs. Urban landscapes, hidden corners of cities, fire escapes and alleyways, empty streets at dawn, but also people caught in moments of raw emotion. A woman laughing on a subway platform, an old man feeding pigeons in a park, two children holding hands. Each image captured something essential, something true. I wandered through the gallery, studying each photograph, and felt something shift in my chest. This was what Adrian did, this was his art. Seeing the invisible, making the overlooked beautiful. And then I turned a corner and stopped. There in the back corner was a series titled Waiting. My breath caught. They were photos of Mark as my son, my quiet, careful son, sitting on a bench by the waterfront, looking out at the river, laughing in a coffee shop, his eyes crinkled with genuine joy, standing in the rain with his head tilted up and his eyes closed, like he was baptizing himself, reading a book in a park, completely absorbed. Each image captured something I'd never seen or had. Stop noticing joy, vulnerability, hope, peace. My son, seen through someone else's eyes, someone who clearly adored him. He doesn't know I'm showing these. I turned. Charlie stood beside me, hands in his pockets, looking nervous. Up close, he was younger than I'd expected. His eyes were kind, intelligent. There was paint on his jeans, small splatters of white. You're Thomas's father, he said quietly. I've seen pictures at the restaurant. You've been to the restaurant once. Thomas pointed you out through the kitchen window. I stayed in the car. He smiled sadly. I'm good at staying hidden. You're Charlie, he nodded. He talks about you a lot, does he? Yeah, Charlie hesitated. He's afraid of disappointing you. Those words hit me like a punch, like physical pain. We could never disappoint me, I said, my voice rough, raw. Adrian studied me for a long moment. His eyes were searching, trying to understand if I meant it. Then you should tell him that, he said softly, because right now he thinks he's living a lie. He thinks the truth will destroy your relationship. It won't. I believe you, but he needs to hear it. I looked back at the photographs, at my son's face, captured in moments of unguarded happiness. These are beautiful, I said. He's beautiful. He makes it easy. How long have you been together? 5 months, but it feels like longer, like I've known him forever. Charlie smiled. Is that too cheesy? No. That's how I felt about his mother. We stood there in silence for a moment, two men who loved the same person in different ways. I saw you. I was admitted to the alley behind the restaurant. Adrian's face went pale. I have security cameras. I was worried about break-ins. I saw you two together, Mr. Chen. Luca, please. Luca took a breath. I love your son. I know we haven't been together long, but I love him and I'm not going to hide that. I'm not going to make him hide anymore. Good, he blinked. Good, I don't want him hiding either. I don't want him to feel like he has to protect me from the truth. Then tell him that tonight, because he's tearing himself apart trying to figure out how to come out to you. Found Thomas at the Overlook that night. The same place from Adrian's email, a cliffside parking area off Skyline Boulevard with a view of the entire city. Portland spread out below. It's like a constellation of lights. His car was parked at the edge, and through the windshield I could see him sitting alone, staring out at the skyline. My heart ached. I parked beside him, got out. The night air was cool, clean, with the smell of pine and earth. He looked over, startled. Dad, what are you doing here? I went to a gallery today, I said, leaning against his car. Charlie, show. The color drained from his face. All of it. He went completely white. I saw the photographs. I continued. The ones of you. Thomas's hands gripped the steering wheel so hard his knuckles went white. Dad, I can explain. They're beautiful. Thomas, you look happy in them. Happier than I've seen you in years. He didn't respond, couldn't. Maybe. I know about Charlie. I've known for a few weeks how the security camera. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have been watching without telling you, but I was worried and I stopped. That's not an excuse. I invaded your privacy and I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry I found out. Thomas got out of the car, standing a few feet away. The wind picked up, pushing his hair back from his face. Why are you here? His voice was barely a whisper. "'Cause I owe you an apology." Real one. The lights of the city twinkled below us. Somewhere people were living their lives, going to dinner, falling in love, and being honest with each other. After your mom died, I shut down. I continued. I stopped asking questions. Stopped really seeing you. I let you hide because it was easier than confronting my own grief. Easier than being vulnerable. Thomas's voice cracked. I wasn't hiding because of grief, I know. Then why didn't you ask? Because I was scared, I admitted. Scared of saying the wrong thing, of making things worse, of losing you the way I lost her. Tears streamed down Thomas' face. Now I'm gay, Dad, I know, and I'm in love with Charlie, I know that too. And you're okay with it? I stepped forward, closing the distance between us. Thomas, I watched footage of you two together. I saw the way he looks at you, the way you light up around him. The way you smile when you're with him, really smile, the way you used to before your mom died. How could I not be okay with that? Thomas broke down completely, sobbing, shoulders shaking. I pulled him into my arms, holding him the way I should have been holding him all along. The way I'd held him as a child when he had nightmares, the way I'd held him at his mother's funeral. I'm so sorry, I whispered into his hair. I'm sorry. Made you feel like you couldn't tell me. I'm sorry I wasn't paying attention. I'm sorry for every single moment you felt alone, every time I talked about grandchildren and carrying on the family name, every time I made assumptions about your future. I thought you'd hate me. Thomas sobbed into my shoulder. I could never hate you. You're my son. You're the best thing your mother and I have ever created. And whoever you love, however you love, that doesn't change anything. I was so scared. I know, and I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We stood there for a long time, father and son. The city lights twinkling below us, and I felt something shift, like a door I'd nailed shut was finally opening, like we were finally being honest with each other. Does he know you're here? I asked eventually. Thomas pulled back, wiping his eyes with the heel of his hand. Charlie, no, I was supposed to meet him an hour ago. I told him I needed time alone first. Why? Because I was trying to figure out how to tell you. I'd made this whole plan. I was going to sit you down tomorrow at the restaurant. After the Sunday rush, I had a speech prepared and everything. What was the speech? He laughed wetly. It doesn't matter now. Tell me anyway. Thomas took a breath. I was going to say, Dad, I'm gay. I've known since I was 14. I've been dating someone for 5 months. His name is Charlie, and he makes me happier than I've been since Mom died. And if you can't accept that, I'll understand, but I'm done hiding. My chest tightened. You're prepared to lose me. I was prepared to lose you, to keep him, to keep being myself. You're braver than I ever was. I don't feel brave. I feel terrified. That's what makes it brave. He smiled, that real smile I'd seen in Adrian's photographs. Then let's not keep him waiting, I said. Dad, I'd like to meet him properly, not through a security camera. Thomas stared at me. Are you serious? Completely. Unless you'd rather I didn't know. No, I want you to meet him. I've wanted that for months. Charlie lived in a small studio apartment in the Pearl District. Thomas texted him from the car coming up, bringing someone. Don't panic. By the time we reached his floral walk-up building with creaky stairs and paint peeling from the walls, Zadrian was standing in the doorway. He was wearing the same paint-splattered jeans from the gallery and a gray t-shirt with holes in it. His hair was disheveled. He looked terrified. Mr. Chen, he said immediately. I can explain. You don't need to explain anything, I interrupted. I just wanted to thank you. He blinked. Thank me for making my son smile again, for seeing him when I wasn't looking, for loving him enough to be patient while he figured things out. Charlie glanced at Thomas, who nodded. I love him, sir, Charlie said quietly. I know we haven't been together long, but I've never felt this way about anyone. He's everything to me. I can see that. I saw your photographs. His cheeks flushed. He's my favorite subject. I am Muse, the person who makes me want to create. Sparkus groaned. Charlie, it's true. Charlie looked at me directly. Your son is one of the kindest, most incredible people I've ever met. He's thoughtful and funny, and he makes terrible puns that somehow make me laugh anyway. And I know I'm probably not what you imagined for him, but You're exactly what I want for him, I said. Someone who makes him happy, someone who sees him, someone who isn't afraid to love him openly. Adrian's eyes glistened, the apartment behind him was tiny. I could see everything from the doorway. A futon that doubled as a couch, a small kitchen area, photography equipment everywhere, and on the walls more photographs. Most of them were of Thomas. Now I continued, I'm going to leave you two alone, but Charlie, I expect you at Sunday dinner this week. Thomas will give you the address. Yes, sir, thank you. I turned to Thomas. I love you exactly as you are, always have, always will. He hugged me again, tight and fierce. I love you too, Dad. Thank you for understanding, thank you for being brave enough to be yourself. I drove home alone, windows down, letting the cool Portland night wash over me. My phone buzzed with a text from Thomas. Thank you doesn't feel like enough, but thank you for everything. I pulled over and responded, you never have to thank me for loving you, that's what parents do. Another text, not all parents then. I'm lucky to be yours. Sunday dinner became a tradition. Charlie showed up nervous that first week, carrying flowers for the table and homemade bread his grandmother had taught him to make. I'm not a great cook, he admitted, handing me the bread, but I can do bread and I'm a really good dishwasher. Within an hour he was laughing at my terrible jokes and helping prep vegetables for the stir-fry. Within 2 hours he was telling embarrassing stories about Thomas that made my son blush. He fit more than that, he belonged. I watched them together in my kitchen, the kitchen where Li Ming and I had cooked together for 20 years, and felt something settle in my chest. This was right, this was what family looked like. Over the following months, I watched their relationship deepen. The quiet mornings they spent together in the restaurant before opening, drinking coffee and reading the newspaper in comfortable silence. The way Charlie photographed everything, even mundane moments like Thomas counting receipts or chopping vegetables for the evening prepped. The way Thomas looked at him like he'd found home. One evening in October I found them on the restaurant's back patio. It was after closing, the city was quiet. They'd strung up lights, white Christmas lights, they'd found in the storage room, and were slow dancing to music playing from Adrian's phone. No customers, no audience, just them. Thomas's head rested on Adrian's shoulder. Adrian's hand traced gentle circles on his back. They swayed together, wrapped in each other. Wrapped in that moment, I stood in the doorway watching and felt my throat tight. This was what love looked like, not perfect, not easy, but real, honest. Worth fighting for. In November, Adrian asked if he could photograph the restaurant for his portfolio. I want to capture what it means to Thomas, he explained. The history, the family, the love that built this place. He came early one morning before dawn and spent hours capturing details. I'd stopped noticing the worn spot on the counter where my father used to lean, the menu board with his handwriting still visible under layers of chalk. The family photos on the wall, including ones of Li Ming, the wok that had been in our family for 40 years. When Charlie showed me the final collection, I cried. He'd captured not just a restaurant but a legacy, a love story written in recipes and sweat and determination. Thank you, I said, for seeing us. It's what I do, he replied softly. I see the things people forget to notice. At Christmas, Adrian pulled me aside. We were in the kitchen prepping for the family gathering. Thomas was upstairs getting ready. My sister and her family would arrive soon. Luca, I need to ask you something. His hands were shaking slightly. You can call me Luca, I said. We're past formalities. Luca took a breath. I want to ask Thomas to move in with me. Well, technically, we'd need to find a new place together. My studio is way too small, but I've been saving up and I think we could afford a one-bedroom in a decent neighborhood. And I'm rambling, you are, I agreed, smiling. The point is, I want to ask him. I know it's soon, only 5 months, but when you know, right? And I wanted your blessing. I know I don't need your permission. Marquez is an adult, but it matters to me. You matter to him, and that means you matter to me. I set down the knife I've been using. You really love him more than anything, more than photography, more than anything. He's it for me. Then you have my blessing for whatever that's worth. Adrian's smile could have powered the city. It's worth everything. They moved in together in January, a small two-bedroom apartment near the river, big windows, perfect light for Adrian's photography, close enough to the restaurant that Thomas could still walk to work. I helped them carry boxes up 3 flights of stairs. My back complained, but I didn't care at some point, while Thomas and Adrian were debating furniture placement in the living room. I found myself standing alone in their empty bedroom. This was it, my son, starting his life with a man who cherished him. It was everything I'd wanted, even when I hadn't known to want it. Dad, Thomas stood in the door, holding a lamp. You okay? He asked. Yeah, I smiled, just remembering that night when I found out about you too. You mean when you spied on me? I prefer accidentally discovered through legitimate security concerns. He laughed, that beautiful sound I'd been hearing more and more. What did my son Thomas do that night that left me completely speechless? I said softly. He showed me what courage looks like. He taught me that love isn't something to hide, it's something to celebrate every single day. Amadas crossed the room and hugged me. Thank you for listening, for trying, for not giving up on me. Thank you for giving me the chance, for being patient while I figured things out. Adrian appeared behind him carrying a box labeled kitchen stuff. He asked. Yeah, Thomas said, pulling back. Just getting sentimental. We'll save some of that energy. We've got 3 more car loads of stuff and the rental truck is due back in 2 hours. Spring came early that year. The restaurant had its best quarter in years. I'd updated the menu, added some of Adrian's suggestions. Actually, turns out he was a better cook than he'd claimed. Thomas got promoted at work, senior developer, better salary, benefits. Adrian's photography career took off. He landed a show in Seattle, then another in San Francisco. His work started appearing in magazines. And one evening in April, they invited me to dinner at their apartment. Why does this feel like an ambush? I asked. Sitting at their small dining table, they'd cooked to tried to. The pasta was slightly overdone and the sauce was from a jar, but they'd clearly put effort into it. It's not an ambush, Thomas said, exchanging a glance with Charlie. Then what is it? Charlie cleared his throat. We wanted to tell you something here in our home. Privately, my heart skipped. What is it? They were holding hands under the table. I could see their fingers intertwined. We're getting engaged, Thomas said softly. Adrian asked me last night. I said yes. The words hung in the air, shimmering like the candles they'd lit. We wanted you to be the first to know, Adrian added, and we wanted to ask if you'd walk Thomas down the aisle if we have an aisle. We haven't figured out the details yet. I couldn't speak. All I could do was stand up and pull both of them into a hug. Tears streaming down my face. Is that a yes? Thomas asked, laughing and crying at the same time. That's a yes, I managed. That's 1,000 times yes. The wedding planning took months. They decided on an outdoor ceremony. Rooftop venue overlooking the river. Late June, when the weather would be perfect, I helped where I could, made suggestions, offered to cover costs. They refused most of my money. They wanted to do this themselves, but they let me pay for the catering. Chen's Kitchen would cater the wedding. It felt right, my family restaurant celebrating my family. One evening in May, while we were going over menu options, Marquez went quiet. We were at the restaurant. After closing, just the 3 of us. What's wrong? I asked. He was fidgeting with his watch. That old tale I've been thinking about, Mom, he said finally. About how she would have reacted to all of this. The words settled heavy in the room. She would have loved Charlie. I said immediately. You think so? I know. So your mother had a gift for seeing people, really seeing them. She would have taken one look at Charlie and known this is the one. Adrian's eyes were suspiciously bright. She would have had opinions about the wedding, though. I continued. Very strong opinions about flowers and seating arrangements. Thomas laughed. She would have driven us crazy. Absolutely. And we would have loved every minute of it. We sat there in comfortable silence, the 3 of us, honoring the woman who wasn't there but whose love had shaped everything. I wish she could be here, Thomas whispered. I said, every time you're brave enough to be yourself, every time you choose love over fear. She's here. The wedding was on a Saturday in late June. The sky was impossibly blue, the kind of Portland summer day that makes you remember why you live here. I helped Thomas get ready in a small room off the rooftop. He wore a navy suit tailored perfectly. Charlie wore gray. I'm nervous, Marquez admitted, adjusting his tie for the 10th time. That's normal. What if I mess up the vows? Then Charlie will love you. Anyway, he smiled. Yeah, he will. Are you ready? He took a deep breath. Yeah. I'm ready. I offered him my arm. Then let's go get you married. The ceremony was beautiful, small, intimate, just close friends and family. They'd set up chairs facing the river. The sun was starting to set, its painting everything gold. Music played something soft and instrumental, and then we walked down the aisle. My son, my brave, beautiful son. Everyone stood. People were already crying. Charlie stood at the altar, if you could call it that, tanned. When he saw Thomas, his whole face transformed, pure joy, pure love. I walked Thomas to him, then stepped back. Who gives this man to be married? The officer asked. I said, my voice strong, with all my love and blessings. I took my seat in the front row, and the ceremony began. Their vows destroyed me. Charlie went first. Thomas, he said, his voice shaking. When I met you, I was taking pictures of empty places, invisible cities, spaces people walked past without noticing. And then I saw you, and suddenly I understood you were the invisible city. This whole person is full of depth and beauty and light, hiding in plain sight, and I get to spend the rest of my life making sure you're seen, making sure you know how extraordinary you are. I love you. I will always love you, and I promise to see you every single day exactly as you are. There wasn't a dry eye in the crowd. Then Thomas spoke. Charlie, you taught me that hiding isn't the same as safety. That being said, really, sin is the most terrifying and most necessary thing. You taught me that love isn't something to be afraid of, it's something to run toward, and every day with you feels like coming home, like I can finally breathe. I promise to be brave with you, to be honest with you, to build a life with you where neither of us has to hide. I love you, with everything I am. They exchanged rings. And when the officiant said, you may kiss, they did, soft at first, then deeper. The crowd erupted in applause, and standing there watching my son kiss his husband for the first time, I thought about that night in the alley, that grainy security footage, that moment when everything changed. At the reception, Adrian's best man gave a toast to Thomas and Charlie. He said, raising his glass, two people who found each other against all odds, who built something beautiful out of honesty and courage and patience. May your love story continue to inspire everyone lucky enough to witness it. Everyone drank. And then Thomas stood up. Want to say something too, he announced. The room quieted. A year ago I was terrified. I'd been hiding the most important part of my life from the most important person in my life. He looked at me, my dad. I felt everyone's eyes turn. I thought telling him would mean losing him. I thought love, my kind of love, was something to be ashamed of, something to hide. His voice steadied. But my dad taught me something. He taught me that real love, the kind worth having, doesn't ask you to hide, it asks you to be brave, to be honest, to trust that the people who truly love you will rise to meet you where you are. Thomas raised his glass. So here's to my dad. For listening, for learning, for showing me that it's never too late to choose love over fear, for walking me down the aisle today, for accepting Charlie into our family, for proving that change is possible, that growth is possible, that understanding is possible. The room erupted again. I stood, crossing to where Thomas and Adrian sat, and pulled my son into another embrace. I'm so proud of you, I whispered. I know, he whispered back. I finally believe it. Later that night, after most guests had left, I found myself on the rooftop alone. The city lights sparkled below. The river reflected the moon. Beautiful night. Adrian joined me at the railing, too. Glasses of champagne in hand, he offered me one. Thank you, I said, for everything, for loving him, for being patient with both of us. He's easy to love. Still, not everyone would have waited, would have understood. Charlie smiled. I've been where he was, hiding. Afraid. I know what it costs, and I know what it means when someone finally sees you and says, this is okay, you're okay. You gave him that gift, and in doing that you gave me a gift too. What gift? A father-in-law who loves his son enough to grow, who loves him enough to change. That's rare, that's special. I stood there in comfortable silence. Watching the city, take care of him, I said finally, always. And if you ever hurt him, you'll kill me, I know fair, I laughed, I was going to say I'll be disappointed, which is worse, definitely worse, as I write. It's been a year since that wedding, 18 months since that night in the alley, since I watched grainy security footage and realized how much I'd been missing. Thomas and Charlie live 10 minutes away now. They upgraded to a 2-bedroom, 1-bedroom for sleeping. One for Adrian's photography studio. They come for Sunday dinner every week without fail. Last month they told me they're thinking about adoption. It's early, Thomas said quickly. We're just starting the research. The process takes years, but we wanted you to know to prepare you. A grandchild, I said, the words settling warm in my chest. Maybe, Charlie said, if we're approved, if we can make it work, you'll make it work. And when you do, that child will be the luckiest kid in the world. 'Cause they will. They'll have 2 fathers who chose each other, who fought to build a life together. They'll grow up knowing that love comes in all forms. They'll never have to hide. The walls of their apartment are covered with Adrian's photographs. Now most of them are of Thomas still, but there are others too. Photos of the restaurant, of Sunday dinners, of the 3 of us cooking together, photos of their wedding day. And my favorite photo Charlie took without telling anyone, it's from the reception. Thomas and I are standing off to the side having a quiet moment. I'm adjusting his tie, we're both laughing. Charlie titled it Found Family, and that's what we are now, not perfect, not without our struggles and misunderstandings, but found, chosen. Real. People ask me sometimes how I handled it, finding out my son was gay, finding out he'd been hiding, finding out through security footage instead of him telling me directly. The truth is, I didn't handle it gracefully. I stumbled through it, made mistakes, had to learn and relearn what it meant to be supportive. I had to confront my own assumptions, my own prejudices, my own failures as a father, but I showed up. That's the thing about love, real, unconditional love. It doesn't require perfection, it requires presence, it requires being willing to say, I don't understand everything, but I'm trying, I'm here, I'm not going anywhere. Last week, Thomas and Adrian invited me to see their adoption portfolio. It's a book they'll present to potential birth mothers, photos and stories and letters explaining who they are, what kind of parents they'd be. It was beautiful, honest, vulnerable, full of love. There was a section titled Family. On one page was a photo of the 3 of us at the restaurant. Underneath, Charlie had written, "This is Luca, Thomas' father. He taught us that family isn't just about biology, it's about showing up, about choosing love even when it's hard, about being brave enough to grow. He'll be the kind of grandfather who makes terrible jokes, teaches our child to cook family recipes, and loves without condition. We can't wait for our child to know him." I had to leave the room. I stood in their kitchen crying, overwhelmed by the grace they'd shown me. I didn't deserve it, but they gave it anyway. So what did my son Thomas do that night that left me completely speechless? He loved someone fully. Honestly, bravely, he loved someone, and in doing so he gave me the greatest gift a child can give a parent: the chance to grow, the chance to learn, the chance to become the father I should have been all along. That night in the alley, that grainy black and white footage showed me what I'd been missing. Not just that my son was gay, not just that he was in love, but that he'd been carrying this weight alone, that he'd been afraid of my reaction, that I'd failed to create a space where he felt safe being himself. And once I saw that, once I really understood, I couldn't unsee it. I had to change, I had to do better. Now watching him build a life with Adrian, a life full of laughter, creativity, Sunday dinners, and future children, I know one thing for certain: love isn't something to fear, it's something to celebrate every single day, every single form, without exception. Without exception, without hesitation. That's what Thomas taught me, and I'll spend the rest of my life making sure he and Charlie and their future children and anyone else who needs to hear it knows just how grateful I am for that lesson. Because what did my son Thomas do that night that left me completely speechless? He showed me what real courage looks like. He showed me that love, true, honest, authentic love, is always worth celebrating. He showed me that being seen, really seen, is both terrifying and essential. And he showed me that it's Never too late to change, to grow, to choose love over fear. That night changed everything, not because I saw my son kissing a man, but because I saw my son being truly completely happy for the first time in years, and I realized that his happiness, his authentic, honest happiness mattered more than any assumption I'd ever made about his future, more than tradition, more than expectations, more than my own fear. His happiness mattered most, and ensuring that happiness, protecting it, celebrating it, supporting it became my new mission. That's what fathers do, not the fathers we see in movies or read about in books, but real fathers, imperfect fathers. Fathers who stumble and make mistakes and have to learn as they go. Real fathers show up, they listen, they grow, and they love without condition. That's what I'm trying to do every single day. For Thomas, Adrian, for the family we're still building, one Sunday dinner at a time, one conversation at a time, one moment of honest, unconditional love at a time. Should their story continue? Comment part 2. If you want more, like if this made your heart race, subscribe for weekly gay romance stories.